Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
You're listening to Bloomberg Businessweek with Massar and Tim Stenovec on Bloomberg Radio.
When we talk about financial inclusion, we think about the participation of different groups within the traditional financial ecosystem. Think banks and financial services and the like. We talk about people being unbanked versus people being banked. And according to a FDIC survey from 2021, it's the most recent year that data are available, unbanked rates were higher among lower income households, less educated households, Black households, Hispanic households, working age households with a disability, and single mother households. Also, differences in unbanked rates between Black and white households and between Hispanic and white households in 2021 were present at every single income level. One person who thinks a lot about financial inclusion is Sheena Allen. She's the founder of Mindfull AI. She's also the founder and former CEO of Capway. She spent her career thinking about financial inclusion. She joins us now from Los Angeles. Sheena, good to have you on the program. How are you?
I'm well. How about yourself?
We're doing really well. I want to talk about your most recent startup, Mindfull AI. You're focusing on the idea that helping those folks out there who have a vision, but don't necessarily have the skills to or education to create that vision that they have in mind. I mean, this is like the promise of AI, right?
It's supposed to be.
It's supposed to be. Okay. Are we there?
The point of Mindfull. So Mindfull is the parent company. One of our first products is about people who are or have an idea for some form of software, usually an app or a website. But the problem in AI is we are still full of gaps and biases with a lot of the data that goes into making these advanced systems and these language models. And that's the part that we want to change at Mindfull.
Do you see, because a big part of your career is focused on financial inclusion when you were at Capway, do you see similarities between financial inclusion or lack thereof and inclusion when it comes to AI?
I do. The parallels are when I was, at Capway, and I still continue to do that work in other aspects. We talk about unbanked, underbanked. I'm born and raised in Mississippi, so the state that has the highest population of unbanked and underbanked residents. So that was family members. Still is to some degree. You look at the fact that Mississippi, I use that as an example. We just got a Chase Bank maybe in the last year or two. I think a lot of people think that national banks are everywhere, but that's not the case. A lot of times it's local banks, it's community banks, and other times there's no banks at all. And so a lot of what we dealt with at Capway was people who didn't have access to the system. And if they did have access to the system, did they trust it? Did they have the knowledge? Did they have the access? We saw an expedited piece in financial inclusion with COVID because, of course, people couldn't walk into a bank branch. But similar to financial inclusion, a lot of the biggest issues is lack of data, it's lack of knowledge, it's lack of access from both sides. You got to think when we got our $1,200 from COVID, people were surprised that a lot of people came out and said, well, how am I supposed to cash this check? I don't have a bank account. I can't get out direct deposit. Now, I think we're seeing that in AI from the aspect of people are starting to realize just how much of biases are playing a role in some of the advancements that we're seeing.
So talk about some of the products that you have at Mindfull AI and how those products are specifically helping Black businesses.
Yeah, so one of our first products is a product called App It Out, like Map It Out, but it's App It Out. And the entire idea of it is taking, giving someone who has an idea for an app, for a website, for some form of software, but they don't have a technical background. And how do we use AI? One aspect of AI, which is called Room, is taking text to software. That's the AI piece of it. But the way this happens, particularly for Black businesses or small businesses, is when you think of Black businesses, if you look at the stats, and look at the data, most of them only employ one person, which is themselves. And usually they don't have that money to hire a tech team, to offshore, to outsource. And most of them don't have a technical background. And so how do we create something that helps them advance. We are in a digital space, a digital world. And while, yes, it is great to have a social media, so a Facebook page, an Instagram page, which is also great ways to engage with customers, can an app help you? Can a website help bring more sales, more customers? And so for people who struggle there and they don't have that access, they don't have that knowledge, they don't have the money to hire someone, how do we take App It Out? How do we take Room AI and create that text to software, particularly for them?
And how many, give us a sense of just, I guess, the scale right now of Mindfull AI. Who are your customers and how has that grown since, you started the company to where we are now?
Yeah, we focus right now strictly on like the non-technical aspect. We have some other products that are coming, but right now App It Out is what we focus on. We're working from everywhere from enterprise to individuals, so it's a mixture. It's not one or the other. Also small businesses, and it's interesting because we have two sides to App It Out. So we bring in customers from both sides. We keep a human aspect to it, so we have everything from like workbooks to courses to boot camps, and then now it's working on this more small language model really. As we're bringing in Room for the text to software, we're seeing that growing from, once again, individuals to more of now enterprises and small business and enterprises. So we continually see it grow. I think people underestimate how many people are non-technical, but would love to have some form of an app or a website or some form of access to technology that either, once again, they don't know about or they don't have the funds to do.
I'm wondering about the startup landscape right now and what it's like going out there and looking to raise money and talking to angel, seed, and venture capitalist investors right now. What's the vibe you're getting from them when you pitch them?
AI is still kind of a hot trend right now. It is cooling itself, but overall in the startup space, whether it's for myself, I'm speaking to peers, just knowing the space in itself, it's actually still tough. I don't think we will ever see it. I don't know if I'll say ever. It will be a while before we ever see funds flowing the way that we saw in 2021 and some of 2022 before things took a shift. We're still waiting on interest rates to be cut. We're hoping that they come sooner than later. But a lot of investors are not deploying capital. And if they are deploying capital, what's required to get that money is a lot of different circumstances. It used to be, hey, I have an idea. I'm pre-seed. I need this to do X, Y, Z. Now it is, what is your traction? What is your revenue? And if you don't have that, do you have a true path to revenue, to customer traction? What is your go-to market? Is it feasible? How much does it take to get there? So a lot of more questions are being asked. A lot of more requirements are being needed in order to get money. The startup landscape, the investment landscape is still very much a rocky road right now.
How many no's are you getting for every yes?
Ooh, now it's crazy. Capway, I would have probably said 20 to 1.
20 to 1. That's I've heard worse, like,
but,
in terms of experience. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, but no, you're right. Capway wasn't as bad. This one is a little bit different. It is AI, so once again, you're in the hot space.
Yeah.
But it is the fact that you're having to pitch to way more people now. And I think the issue that we've seen, honestly, or for me, the CEO who's pitching, is a lot of investors are still taking investment meetings, but they're not honest about the fact that they're not deploying capital. And so that plays a role into it also. It's like, I would rather just tell me that, hey, right now we're not deploying capital, and I could have saved that meeting. But I think a lot of investors are still, they still want to be part of it. They want to know what's going on. They want to have the conversations, keeping their network. But as a CEO from the other side, that hurts because, we're trying to raise money. We need to get to more yeses for people who are actually deploying capital.
Sheena, we only have about a minute left, but I'm looking at your background and it's quite impressive. You've been the founder of multiple startups. What kind of advice would you give to young people who are maybe from a non-technical background, but want to get into the startup space?
Find great mentors, find great sponsors. Those are two different things. So mentors, sponsors, and find networks where you can find people to be part of your team. Team is extremely important. I've been a solopreneur. It's extremely tough. Find great team members, and networking is how you do that.
Sheena, thanks so much for joining us on Bloomberg Businessweek. We do really appreciate it. Sheena Allen, founder of Mindfull AI, also the founder and former CEO of Capway. Sheena joining us from Los Angeles.